So I just wanted to understand that when after we are talking about independence, what jails have we talked about jails as a reformation center. So you see there is no reformation as so far happened because not getting legal aid, not getting the basic uh, rights we are talking about. So
Well, let me put it this way that the jails are no longer medieval. They are not medieval. You know,
okay,
you have tiles in the bathroom. And because the prisoners keep it clean themselves, they keep it fairly clean. I mean, I compare it to the lockup. My God, when I was in the lockup, I thought if the jail is like this, I'll die. So dirty, filthy, but because the prisoners keep it clean themselves. So, yes, it is like that. I mean, the cleanliness is not so bad. Of course, when there are water crisis, which is very frequent, then one is queuing up and there's a lack of water and all that. The greater problem is that to have reform, what is the attitude which is needed in the jail authorities? You see, a basic task which they have to do is to count people according to the case. Open them up in the morning, close them in the afternoon, again open them up, give them their food, close them, and give the total. Now, if that is what you think is your basic job, then you're treating them like animals. You're just
hmm.
herding them, counting them, taking them out, giving them food, and that's all. But if we really think of it as a reformatory institution, then what we should be more concerned about is what are these women doing in the 24 hours when they're in this jail? Are they reading anything? Are they studying anything? Are they, agonizing over something? Do they need counseling? What will they do when they go out? Are we trying to rehabilitate them? Are we giving them any new skill? If at least there should be some officers dedicated to this work, just like you have somebody dedicated to canteen, distributing the canteen, there's somebody who's dedicated to taking care of the mulakats. There must be somebody dedicated to seeing what are the extra co-curricular activities which women are doing. There should be. I mean, there was a psychiatrist, a very good psychiatrist who used to come every week in Baikala, but she is dealing with people who are maladjusted, that is, whom you cannot control, who are getting aggressive. But there are people who are simply depressed, they're very quiet, they're not causing any problem to anybody. That person will not be going to the psychiatrist, but that person needs attention. So you need counseling. So these are the kind of specialized officers that they need to, in the jail departments, to make that really a reformatory thing and to ensure that people, when they come out, will not slip back into the same crime. There are women who come for prostitution. I'm sure many of them go back into it. There are women who come in for NDPS. Many of them would go back into it. There are women who come in because of theft, because of drug addiction, because of begging. Uh, all those reasons. They're Bangladeshi women who are coming out of sheer poverty. They've not committed any crime. What are we doing to do away with the sources of that crime? And what are we doing to make sure that they will not be in jail again?
So there is an infrastructure. Infrastructure development is there in the jails. But when we talk about the other part of it, so it still requires a full attention. Is
Yes,
it that way?
yes, yes.
Like, are they able to meet their family members? How it is that? Are they getting, there are libraries, are they getting all those things?
Well, there is a system of mulakat, and one very good thing which happened was during the Corona period, uh, because physical mulakats were stopped. I'm very grateful that some people petitioned the court and including the PUCA and so on. So we, after 5 to 6 months of absolutely no communication, when women didn't know even how their children are doing or their families are doing, then the telephone call started, which was a great relief. Now, sadly, since the mulakat started, the telephone stopped. Actually, the telephone was very convenient even for people who may have an old mother who's not able to come and travel, or somebody, or they've been brought outside their state and somebody has to travel a long distance. Anyway, the mulakat, etc., was there. Library, etc. That's what I'm saying. That these are the additional things which we are thinking of improving the quality of their life. The basics are being given. Your food is there, your water is there, you can, sanitation. The basic things are there. Uh, But what is not there is, what do you do with your life? And how do you spend your time? So most people spend their time fighting and arguing.
Falvia ma'am, is there anything you would like to add on this? Your experience working closely on the cases?
Actually, the work of our organization is mainly in the family court, defending the rights of vulnerable women, victims of domestic violence. And also, more recently, we've been working on sexual violence, particularly under the POCSO Act, for children who are abused, uh, children under 18, girls or boys. And there we support the survivors through the entire litigation process. So we have court experience in the family court as well as in the sessions court. But I had great experience when we were doing the bar dancer campaign, where several girls were arrested, either before the ban, after the ban. It's been a very, very long struggle. And we got permission to enter the prison, talk to the girls, find out how they are, etc. And worst part of it was, though men and women were arrested, the bar owners, the managers, etc., even the waiters, everybody, the owners released everybody on bail except the girls. And they were earning money through the girls, but they were not releasing the girls. And we secured for one batch a bail, and then another batch would come, another batch would come. It would be coming in waves and waves and waves. And that's the time I used to go, our team used to go and meet the girls and talk to them what's happening at Biker Jail. And that time there were like several NGOs used to come there and various activities. I've even seen computer classes going on there, some art classes, something else to engage the underclass over there and give them some hobby, some purpose in life, etc. But unfortunately, over a period of time, the girls who were arrested got termed as Bangladeshis and they had to be deported, and there was a lot of saga that was happening. But what the discussion I had with Sudhaji, what she said, feels very strongly is that the legal aid is not working. And that has been our experience as well. That under the mandate of the Constitution, you are supposed to provide legal aid for every criminal who is put in the jail in the custody of the courts. But if you see there, somebody for like petty crimes and all are languishing in the jail, even beyond the maximum sentence, they are to be awarded if they get convicted. Even beyond that, they are there. And the worst thing that I noticed, in a way, there's a big difference when men are arrested and are in custody, and women are arrested in custody. For women, there is a greater stigma. Secondly, the family is not bothered. They don't want this woman back at all. So she's ignored. Her children are neglected. And somebody has written an article on this. The situation of women in mental asylums, in shelter homes, in jails, all similar. The family disowns them. The family does not want them. So they're not bothered about securing bail for them. Nobody's ready to pay the bail amount. When we used to go there, people used to beg us, like something like 1,000 rupees bail, 2,000 rupees bail. The family is not paying, so they're still, though they've got bail, they're still languishing there. So what you said about legal aid is one thing, and the bail amount. In fact, that time State Commission for Women was talking about creating a corpus from which bail amount would be paid, and when these women come out, they can repay the commission with this amount. But also, the person in charge was transferred to a different section, and this scheme never got off at all. So one is legal aid and one is a bail amount. These are, I think, very critical questions for women who are in a custodial situation. So what Sudhaji said to us that all her time in the jail would be spent writing bail applications. And of course, she wouldn't even know what is the fate of this bail application, what has happened to them. Is there a lawyer to argue these applications in court? So I find this is a critical area where the state is absolutely ignored. And particularly for women, where the family is not standing by them, it becomes all the more important that they are given adequate legal aid so that they have small children. I met one woman who was a daily wage earner. She had 4 children back in Nagpur, and she was here in Bombay. And her one concern was, how are my children? I have no news about them. So these are the constraints that women are placed when they are in the custody. So some of these things, I think you also highlighted, Sudhaji. So we need to address them, and our state has to be much more aware of this. And we need a functioning legal aid. We cannot
Yes.
have a legal aid just in name, that there is a legal aid authority, there is a judge who's in charge, etc., etc. They have not taken this role seriously at all. And this is, I think, a primary concern.
So, Varsha, how do you see that legal aid, the vacuum which is we are talking about, the jails and the lawyers, and this reaching out to the women? How do you see this?
So, as we spoke with Sudhaji earlier on, the legal aid, as Flavia ji rightly said, it's on paper. We have brilliant laws, we have everything constitutionally guaranteed, but the implementation from what it actually exists, there's a big gap in that which needs to be filled. This void situation or this lack or this dearth of legal aid was any which way the situation prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, making it all the more worse right now. Already existing very slow procedure has even become more turtle paced. And as a professor of government law college, when I had to take my students for their vivas, we've gone to the concerned prisons. We've done the exercise of drafting bail applications for them or other several applications, miscellaneous applications for them. And just by the look on their faces, just by the demeanor, just by the attitude, we could easily make out that they had that attitude that, okay, a lot of lawyers have come and gone, but nothing has come out of this, and totally hopeless, given up. And one would not blame them. As Sudhaji also said, that there exists a psychiatrist or a counselor, but they basically and primarily deal with just disturbed people, extreme violent people like that. And the silent ones, the ones who actually need more professional help or clinical help, they're the ones neglected. So when I had on one occasion taken my students, I had given them the mandatory directives that don't smile, don't make eye contact, in the sense because children are much they don't know much. They look at them in a friendly way, but the persons inside are so sad and so discontent, they mistake that as making fun, they mistake that as mockery. So I give them a drill. Before that, I tell them that be straight faced, be professional, don't wear earrings and all, because again, women. So be as sober, be as decent, keep your conversation limited to the point, because you might look at them and smile, but they might mistake that as, how animals in the zoo are locked up and you're mocking at them and smiling at them. They're discontent. People of different, there's overcrowding of prisons, the decongestion of prisons is the need of the hour. And in the midst of all this, everybody is clubbed together. There is no reformation, there is frustration, there is discontent, there is no proper legal aid. So all these sort of things are happening, and these are women who need counseling. So this is what I also wanted to know from Sudhaji is, in Delhi, for example, in Tihar jail, they have scholarships for prisoners, children. The first child is given 3,500, and then there's 6,000 if there are two. So, as like I said, there are lovely laws on paper, but I wanted to know, in your experience, is this actually implemented? For example, when there is a prisoner and she has a child who comes to visit her, is there a proper atmosphere, or is there a room given, or is she extended the facilities where she can be integrated with her family, howsoever temporarily? Are those facilities available to her? What are the living conditions? Because I've seen your work, so that you've campaigned for where the husbands refuse to use contraceptives, their sexual health is neglected, they face a lot of adversities. So in prisons, are there, with respect to the menstruation, with respect to all of that, are those facilities available? Medical, sanitary, so medical facilities for the mind and the body, for their children, what are the facilities when it comes to that? And you already mentioned how wonderfully you've helped writing down their applications and all. And since they're illiterate, most of them, the language is a barrier, because again, all our documents, the charge sheet and everything is in Marathi, so that comes. So what is the gap in that? You've done your part, whatever you could contribute, pearls to the ocean, but nonetheless, you've done your part of writing the applications that you've acquired name for, you've mentioned. But how long has what is the gap which needs to be filled? This is what I want to know.
Your first question was about the medical situation. You see, one thing that I must say, both in Yerwada and in Baikala, the basic medical system was quite okay. There are what is called an OPD every day. People can go and get medicines. Generally, most of the women crib that they only give paracetamol and cetirizine and something or the other, but that is bound to happen to some extent because uh, there are many psychosomatic illnesses. There are many, and maybe a person feels more sick than they actually are physically. Um, but yes, in terms of Yerwada was far more organized because it used to have, say, a person coming for dentistry on one day, a pediatrician coming once a week. Uh, you know, for, there were different skin doctor coming once a week. In Baikala also, but for the period of the corona, obviously nobody could come. That was a really difficult time. The other thing which is good is that they do take TB, HIV, etc. fairly seriously, and even blood pressure and diabetes. So the regularity of that, I, I think perhaps women in a rural area would not be able to have that regular TB regime or the regular HIV ART regime, um, and they get that. So that is very good. The difficulty is more in the fact that they are not often counseled about it. Like for example, if you have an infection, you go to the doctor. The doctor gives you only 2 tablets of antibiotic. The idea is that you should come back after that and take more, because there's a concept of having a dose of antibiotic, but that is not properly explained, so people don't go back. So there might be all kinds of drug resistance which is produced, and so on. So there is not enough time spent on the basic facilities are there, and but there's not enough time spent, and also it takes you to be very serious before you're referred to a hospital, and that means that a lot of things cannot be detected early. Things which could be detected early and maybe cured. Regarding menstruation, now I think the situation has much improved in the sense that sanitary napkins are quite easily available. Of course, you have to go and write in the register and so on. And from time to time, they also come to the barracks to find out what is your last menstrual date. So they do keep a record of that. Sometimes the quality of the napkins are not very good, but okay, that's part of the. At least you get them. The bigger joke is that when any woman goes to the Baikala jail or the Yerwada jail, you have to have a pregnancy test. So I also was made to undergo a pregnancy test. As in, look, 15 years ago, I have stopped menstruating. What is the big idea? They said, नहीं 70 साल की भी होती है तो भी लेते हैं मैडम, ये rule है. So you see, the implementation of some rules purely mechanically is rather foolish. But anyway, that is done to find out whether you may be nursing a baby inside. Um, Children are still, I think children are the happiest of the lot because they really are showered with a lot of affection by the inmates who don't have anything else to do but looking after children is very nice, and even by the madams who enjoy their company. They also have a little better food also, and they get egg and milk, etc. The problem with the children now in the corona pandemic was earlier they used to be taken to a play school a little outside the gate so that they had a feeling of not being in prison all the time, but that had to stop. But during corona, the situation was very difficult, very, very difficult, because I think, you see, a jail, by definition, social distancing is not possible. That is something which should be understood. It's not possible. I mean, you're just sleeping next to each other, you're lining up, you're queuing up, you're using shared common toilets, common bathrooms. There's no concept of social distancing possible. So, decongestion is the thing. And there I must very sadly say that the judiciary has failed us. Because despite the impassioned plea of the Supreme Court, please decongest the prisons, appoint the high power committees and so on and so forth, high power committees made so many exceptions. POCSO में नहीं, NDPS में नहीं, इसमें नहीं, उसमें नहीं, and on top of that, even for the others who are not of all these, they said it should not be treated as automatic. One should look at the grievousness of the offence. Now, these people don't have a lawyer arguing for them. The IO is there on the other side saying, no sir, very grievous offence, sir. So no interim bails, but very few women, apart from those who, let us say, had the theft, charge of theft, nobody else was released. When people who were very sick were not released. People with asthma, TB, HIV were not released. Uh, Women over the age of 70, 75 were not released. With severe diabetes, like taking 6 injections a day, and I've written all this in the application, that, this lady takes 4 insulin injections a day and so on. They were not released. So I think that should be understood, that in pandemic situation, the judiciary must understand that coronavirus doesn't care whether you're in Mocha or whether you're in NDPS or whether you're ITAR. It doesn't matter. So please decongest the prison. And I hope now with the third wave we will take some.
Okay, I have one more question on a slightly lighter note. So, what happens in the United States of America, which I'm sure everybody's aware, but over there, when the prisoners, they have a court date and all the women, they express the creativity in the sense they make makeup out of the resources which are available in the prison. Whether they use lead and all for, eyeliner, they take the pencil tip, they dissolve it, they use it as eyeliner, they take the instant coffee sachets as eyeshadow, then they take the brick, they extract particles of the brick for their rouge and etc. So us being a developing country, makeup is the least on our priority list. But in terms of food, is there any was did you experience or perceive any creativity expressed there by your?
Oh yes, oh yes.
I was going to ask the same question about food, in fact. What is the quality of the food, and what improvements can actually women and their own creativity into the food that is there?
Yes.
And what's your experience and your birthday cake?
Yes, yes. No, no. Actually, despite everything, how really creative women can be, it is to be seen, to be believed. About makeup, you're wrong. They do makeup when they go to court, and they do makeup for their VC mulakat, which is with their co-accused, usually the husband, partner, whatever. So they do makeup, and they dress up the little children also very nicely when they take them to court. So that, of course, they do, as you said, with the limited resources. But with food, they are marvelous. I mean, Yerbada, the food was a little better because it was cooked for, there were 350 of us, and it was cooked by women. And there was an open khet where, where the convict ladies who have done more than 7 years used to go to work. So there would be, tazi bhaji, sabji would be there. So it was of a better quality. On the other hand, we didn't have any special items on Sundays like it is in Baikala. Baikala is an under trial jail. The food is cooked by the men. The food is not cooked by the women. I must say that the dal was pretty good. The sabji was awful, and the rotis were, yes, up and down. Depending on whether some cooks had been arrested or not. And yes, and the rice. As a basic meal, it was fine, but it was not at all tasty, and eating that day in and day out would probably sicken someone. So the kind of creativity which women show, I mean, in the canteen many things are available. There's chuda, and there wafers, and there's shengdana, and peanuts, and all kinds of other things. And they would, crush peanuts and make it into a chutney and mix it with vegetables, or they will take their rice and mix in it a little bit of kanda lasun powder and some chuda and make it into a pulao, or they would do all kinds of things. So that was wonderful. And birthdays, yes, they would celebrate birthdays. And for my birthday, it was my 60th birthday, just before 1st November, just before I came out of jail. And I knew some hectic activity was going on, so I was trying to not notice it. But basically, all these friends they crushed Marie biscuits and made it into a dough, and they laid it out, and then they took Britannia rusks and dipped them in sugar syrup, and then they coated it with Bonvita, as a chocolate covering, some chocolate cream and so on, and wrote my name in jam. So I told them genuinely from my heart that was the best birthday cake I've eaten in my life. So so women do find ways to make themselves happy, make other people happy, and then there's much fighting, but there's much friendship as well. Yes, you can't survive without friendship in a jail.